And good morning. I'll let you know right up front that I'm in a very deep pondering mood today. The title that I finally selected is Revelation: Evil Can Only Exist in Ignorance. And my blurb goes like this. I've been thinking this morning about the problem of evil. Of course, we know that in English, evil is live backwards. And ignorance begins with ignoring something. As I see it, human society, that's all of us, have been ignoring basic realities for a huge portion of our history. We have become so enmeshed in our idea that we are separate that we literally forgot who we are. Many are now remembering, or, put another way, reconnecting with other parts of ourselves, parts that have been invisible or where the connection is unseen. Inevitably, this move from ignorance will necessarily help us finally get it right, ending evil and enabling creation of a new world together. Or I should say perhaps all together, although that's not what I wrote. Some people would tell you that if you look at evil, you're only going to increase it. I think that's bunk. And if that's your idea, fine, be there as long as you can hold on to that. But if I've learned anything in my 65 years of living this lifetime, I've learned that the things that I try to ignore don't leave. I may get away with it for a period of time, but sooner or later, those things that I've been ignoring or wanting to ignore come back and stare me in the face. It's either in a circumstance, a relationship, something in my life comes back and says, look at me. And we all have a tendency to want to turn away. I do too. I'd like to only think good things and positive things. And yet, I have to admit that in my personal life, as well as in the world around me, there exists what I can only call evil. Now, the way we've always dealt with evil is to try to kill the people that we think are responsible for it. Would there be any of us left if we really accomplished that? I suspect we're all responsible for it because we have collectively agreed to live in this illusion where it appears that there's no connection between us. I'm me and you're you, and everybody else is his or her own self. And we each have our particular viewpoint, our filters, our belief systems, our ideas of what's important and what's not important. In other words, our value system. We each have that. And they're not all the same. We may think that they should be the same, but living in an homogenized world would be boring at the very least, wouldn't it? If we were all literally the same, blended and merged. Well, it depends on how you want to define the blending and the merging, of course, because ultimately we are going to have to either learn to live together in harmony, or we're going to destroy ourselves. The problem of evil is, from my perspective, and Spirit keeps bringing this back to me again and again, is that we think we're separate. It's the illusion of separation. Not remembering that I am bigger than just this body. I am more than just this mind and the thoughts that I contain in my mind. I am more than that. The idea that we are all God sounds like blasphemy to a lot of people trained in monotheistic religions especially. But the idea is that we don't know who we are. We have forgotten who we are. That's what the story of the prodigal son was all about, in a sense. He went into the far country. That's us. Whether we're male or female, it doesn't matter. We went into the far country. Earth is the far country. Earth is the far country. We left our home in the celestial realms, if you will, and we ventured into physicality, or a three-dimensional reality, a place where dualism thrives, a place of forgetting, a place of ignoring our connection to where we came from, and therefore where we're going, because it's all circular. It's not linear. It's not a linear progression. It's a spiraling movement back home. We descended down, and we're ascending back up. The reverse flow of energy, or the antihedromia, as Carl Jung called it, is happening right now on planet Earth. And it's a revelation to me and to all that will hear it and are ready to listen. Yes, there's evil. We can see it in our world. But there's a reason that it's there, and that's because we've ignored our interconnectedness. We've ignored our essence. We've ignored the fact that we are eternal, because now we've bought into the lie that there's lack, there's death, there's sickness, there's all sorts of problems going on, and we forget that these problems are the result of a perception that we think is reality. And when we think it's reality, the universe arranges itself to say, okay, it's your reality, so be it. It agrees with us, in other words. The cosmos says, have at it. Have at it. Where does this lead you? Where does it take you? And maybe the rest of you don't think about things like this. Maybe you're content in the polarization and the constant conflict and the constant warfare in your personal life and in the world around you. Maybe that turns you on. Maybe that's your thing. Okay? It's not my thing. As I sit and I ponder some of the difficulties that I face, and some of the thoughts that come through my mind on solutions, I come up with the same solutions that everybody else does. Get rid of them. Get rid of the evil judges and the evil attorneys and the evil politicians and the evil bankers. Get rid of them. And yet, if I don't deal with the part of me that they represent, if I don't come to terms with the fact that they are my shadow, I will just create the same scenario over again. I will manifest outside of myself that which I perceive as separate, because I perceive it as separate. The revelation that I keep getting, that I've been getting much of my life, I get it and then I forget it, and then I get it and then I forget it again. It goes back and forth, back and forth. Maybe it doesn't happen with you, but that's my experience. Remembering and forgetting. That's what our life is. But the revelation is, wait a minute. It keeps coming back because I need to look at this. I need to ask myself why. And I need to stop ignoring the fact that if it's in my life, it's mine. There's so many New Age teachers, as well as other religions too, but people think that I'm a New Ager, and so they blast me and they say the New Age religion is wrong. Well, New Age teachers are constantly teaching that there are thoughts that you can have that aren't yours. I totally disagree that anything that happens in my life can happen and it's not mine. I think that's insane to even think that, and yet I'll bet you there's a big portion of the people that might be listening today that think exactly that. Well, that's not my thought. That's not about me. Then why are you perceiving it? You can't perceive it if it's not about you. I'm sorry, but I just don't buy into that lie, whether it's taught by some wonderful spiritual teacher or not. Everything that you think, everything that you feel, every circumstance that you deal with in your life has something to do with you. Now, I would like to say, it's not me, I'm the victim, which means I'm disconnected from it. I take no responsibility for it. So when I look at the problem of evil, I can keep on thinking the way that I've always thought, that it's out there. It's not me, because I'm one of the good guys with the white hat. I'm one of the nice people. I'm not like that. And don't think that I don't hear that voice telling me exactly that. Exactly that. Maybe not in those words, but the same meaning. And I'll bet you hear that voice too. What are we going to do with the problem of evil? Are we going to ignore it? Some would say that that's the only way that we can correct it. Because if we focus on it, we sure as hell are going to get more of it. And I'm telling you that if we don't focus on it, we're sure as hell going to get more of it. We're going to keep getting what we've been getting until we stop seeing the way we've been seeing. I want to remember. I want to pull into my frame of consciousness, to my experiential reality, all the parts of me that have been scattered through my eternal journey through time and space, and even my journey outside of time and space. And I don't even know what that is. I mean, I have no conscious concept of it, but I said it because there must be some truth in it. Because all of my experience is not within time and space. I have experience somewhere else, beyond that frame of reference. And so do you, I suspect. So do we all. So we have the opportunity in 2012, as I see it, to really shift our thinking, to call back individually, to say, Spirit, unify my heart, unify my soul, renew my mind, open my eyes, open my ears. Let my hands find work to do that creates a world that works for everybody. Now, what kind of a world would work for everybody? Well, we can't build that world if we're constantly going to be fighting each other, because obviously that doesn't work for everybody. In fact, it doesn't work for anybody, does it? It doesn't matter if you're the victim or the victimizer. There's always going to be a victim and a victimizer as long as we're at war. As long as I'm at war, I'm always going to have issues that are going to be coming up that challenge me. And it's the hardest thing in the world for me to take full responsibility for things that I don't think are mine. It's the hardest thing in the world. In fact, it's impossible until I own them, The first step is owning it and stop ignoring it. Stop turning my head away from it and look at it squarely and say, how did I create this? How am I responsible for this circumstance, this situation, this thing that I call evil, this thing that I don't like? How did I create it? And honestly look at it. Honestly look at it and own it and take it into your heart and say, help me see more clearly. Help me stop being in ignorance. Help me stop seeing myself as good and them bad, or vice versa. I mean, it's just as dangerous for someone that's totally down on themselves and they think that they're no good, and they look at other people and they think, well, they've got it so together. No, they don't. None of us have it together yet, or we wouldn't. I mean, some of us are getting it together, but I don't have it all together yet. And I suspect neither do you. Because we're working on this. This is a process. We're a work in process, a work in progress. And we're progressing toward the place of remembering, to bringing back all parts of ourselves so that we can be fully divine beings and fully human at the same time. We're connecting the dots. We're putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And that puzzle is our identity. It's knowing who we are. And when we learn to live from that perspective, that we're interconnected and that we're eternal and infinite, there will be peace on earth. You can't help it. You can't help it. It's the natural result of getting it right in our thinking. And our thinking must be that there is no separation. Do you understand why fundamentalist religions don't work? Why none of our philosophies work? Why nothing works in our world as long as we're perceiving a world where there is war, where the underlying factors are constant conflict? If that's what we're going to keep thinking, guess what we're going to keep getting? What do you choose today? Do you choose to continue to ignore the things in your life that you don't like and think that they're not yours, that you're not responsible for them? No, you can do that. You've been doing it a long time, so have I. I make a choice to try to take responsibility, to do my very best to take responsibility for everything. And when I find myself forgetting again, to remind myself again and again and again, Ron, it all comes from your consciousness. It's a picture of your internal and external self, mostly the internal part, the unconscious part. Make it conscious and you'll heal it, because that's the way. That's the revelation. I thank you for listening to these thoughts, and I hope more and more of us get it, and I'm sure more and more of us will. Have a beautiful day today, and namaste.